Without further ado, we are rocking and rolling here, and we have my good friend out of a warm climate, way southeast of here, Mary Rodriguez, a social media and communications lead from Microsoft, and she's here to tell us about social advertising trends and spends. And this is sort of ironic and funny, Mary, because you and I worked on a spreadsheet back and forth about this stuff about 30 days ago, and I'm like,
I know.
Now I want to hear what's new because
yeah,
I said it's so new. But anyway, thank you so much for getting ready to share and rock and roll us with what's going on here. And
I'm so excited to be here and so excited to talk to you. You're one of my best people. I think everyone on this panel that have been speaking here, they're just amazing people. So you guys are super lucky to be part of this. I'm super lucky to be part of this. So excited to be here. And yeah, actually I want to talk about trends. That's exactly what we're going to be talking about. Social advertising, which is a hot topic right now. I'm going to share my screen with you guys. I'm going to put my screen on presenter mode. So we'll be moderating questions. If you guys have any questions, just go ahead and put them in the Q&A piece, and then somebody will moderate for me. So just let us know. Just feel free to just ask any questions throughout the presentation. So advertising trends, as we were talking about, you know, they're really a hot topic, and there's things that as social media people, we really need to be on top of what's going on in the industry, what's going on in terms of trends in social advertising, in social storytelling, in the social platforms in general. It is our job. It is our job as social media gurus to really understand what's happening, because as I said before, what has worked maybe 2 minutes ago may not work tomorrow, and that's just the nature of the beast that is social media. So it's really important that we understand what's happening. And for social media trends, in the things that I have seen and the research that I've done in what the white papers are saying about 2017, we're looking a lot on a lot of four things. Actually, the live streaming, which is the one that everybody's talking about, and I know you guys had a session on that, is a really hot topic, and how we're advertising, how we're actually going to integrate that platform, that technology into advertising for social media is really important. So brands are looking at the consumer behavior, the customer behavior in video streaming, in live streaming, and that's something that's really important, because Facebook actually, as you guys know, in May they began to allow selling those video ads within the audience network. It's something new. That's something that they did, and it allowed brands to actually go in and have a bigger targeted audience through video streaming. So that's really important for brands to look into. A lot of people talk about Facebook, being the old-timer, but they actually have kept up. They've kept up with the technology. They've kept up as a platform. It is still the #1 social media platform by number of subscribers in the world. So you have to keep looking at how streaming, live streaming is integrating in ads and what it does in terms of transparency for brands, and what the expectation is from customers. If they are the ones going in and live streaming themselves, they expect the same thing from the brand. If they actually want you to go live streaming, it makes the brand human, transparent, honest, and the opportunities that we see here for live streaming. I'm going to step ahead a little bit. I know I'm jumping around, but it's really important because I wanted to keep that kind of theme going. It's the fact that we have a lot of increase in the number of videos that are being watched in streaming videos, and the number of internet users that are actually watching more videos, more content, the video type content, even if it's live streaming that went and played 2 minutes ago, and people replay that content. It's a new wave of content creation that we're seeing. What can brands do with that? What is the opportunity there? We're seeing that part of that, and I'm going to go back one slide and integrate back to the first list that I had here, was the shopper marketing and the content, the consumer-generated content, and CGC. So when you look at something like live streaming, right, and videos and all this created content that our customers are putting out there, they're talking about brands. They're at this, supermarket and is Snapchatting about it, and that's content that talks about the brand, about your brand. And so how brands can leverage that in the advertising space is they can actually use that content to curate and create their own advertising. They can say, hey, this is what people are saying about us. And we're seeing a trend of this where people are integrating the customer voice that's being used as, from the live streaming, from the videos that are happening. It's a new wave of connecting with people. And we're seeing that trend of people or brands using that content that's consumer generated to actually advertise and use that content to leverage what people are saying about the brand. And you'll ask, well, what about the negative content? What if people are talking negatively about the brand? Well, it's really funny because customers, the trend that we're seeing is that if brands use that negative content and add it to their advertising, saying, hey, so-and-so said this about our brand, we want to set the record straight, or we want to make sure this is fixed, it actually generates a lot more positivity towards brand loyalty in this space. So it's really important when you talk about advertising, how the live streaming, how the video streaming, and the user-generated content, the consumer-generated content is playing out, along with shopper marketing. So I don't know if you've heard that term. It's almost like an emerged term that's come out on social media. The shopper marketing is really understanding your customers' behavior when they shop. And what we're seeing there and the opportunities for brands there is that if you understand how, because they're tweeting about this, because they're sending a snap about it, and they're talking about the brand, if you understand that behavior and what people are saying, because they're talking, they're saying what they want, you can actually leverage that information and actually create even region-specific content for them, or specials. You can create advertising through your apps. Let's say Home Depot, when you actually download their app, they have regional specific, your store, your location advertising for that specific store, and that's based on the content that you're giving them. You know that you're at this location and this is where you shop. That's your Home Depot. That's where you shop. And so they actually take advantage of that and include that in the apps. And so you can advertise through that, and also on social media. So if they know that's your Home Depot, you may get an ad from them specific to your location. So brands can actually do that. The technology exists today, and it's something that brands are leveraging, and we're seeing that more and more as a trend in the customer experience, because customers now are no longer want to know just about your brand. They want to know how you as a brand integrate their experience. If they're talking about you, they're almost waiting for you to return that favor, to say, well, I mentioned the brand, what are they going to say? And it's no longer a wow factor. Before it used to be like, oh, Microsoft tweeted at us. Great. Now it's almost expected that you would. If you talk about Microsoft, they're a big brand, and they better talk back to me. And that's almost a consumer expectation. So we use that, and we should use that as brands to actually leverage that within our advertising content. One of the things that we're also seeing in terms of the experience is that millennials and also Generation Z, who's coming right after, they're more likely to trust experienced consumers. So again, going back to what the content is, people are reading what others are saying about the brand. You go to a store and you shop online first to make sure that's really, really the lowest price, and what other people are saying, not so much the full influencers as we knew. And I'm actually going to jump to the influencer piece because it's really important to understand what's happening with that. So the other piece is influencers as we know them today. They may not exist the same way as they did 2 years ago or even now. And don't get me wrong, influencer marketing is big and advertising is big. It's still big. But when we talk about influencers in general, we no longer as consumers are looking at the Kim Kardashians as a trusted advisor in general. We're actually looking at what the next door neighbor is saying about the brand. So our opportunity here is to really reassess the value of influencer marketing and advertising and see how we can use that user-generated content. Again, our customers are talking about us, our brands are talking about us, to use that content that's already created, curated, good and bad, and really use it for your brand. It's what's happening now and what is making brands trustworthy. When people see that you're taking their own content, curating it, posting it on websites, whatever videos there are, pictures. You know, we saw this with Coke. Coke did this with Share a Coke campaign. Obviously, it was very curated content, but it was real. It was people posting their own stories, and they were free to do so. So the more power we give our consumers, the more trusted we become as a brand. So make sure you reassess the value that your influencers are giving you, who they are, and are they really being trusted the same way as the mom and pop person who's actually just sharing their honest truth about the brand. Keep an eye on smaller platforms, advertising opportunities. That's something else that we're seeing. You know, Snapchat, everybody keeps asking about that, especially because Instagram came up with you know, their own stories and memories. So it's really important to understand the features of each platform and see what suits you best. A lot of people ask, you know, should I be on every platform? I always say no. I say master your platforms and know what you're doing, especially based on your audiences. You know, each platform has a different audience, and if you have a target audience, be there, be where those audiences are, and know that when you're advertising, it really appeals to that specific audience. So keep an eye on what's happening and the features that come out, because these platforms keep reinventing themselves for us, for the brands, as well as for the consumers. And leverage that consumer-generated content and prioritize your content to what consumers want to see. People want to see what they're saying about the brand. They want to see themselves posted. They want to see their pictures out there, and it's already content that exists. So don't go crazy trying to create something when you know that your customers are creating content for you, for your brand. I want to know if there's any questions so far. Ran?
No questions so far, but enter them in, people, if you have any.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know. And then, you know, one other thing that, and I'm going back, I know, because I want to go back to the first slide. I will talk about influencers. I talk about content-generated, you know, consumer-generated content in advertising, video streaming, how you can use that for advertising. The other one is actually the social slideshows. That's something that is up and coming. It's kind of existed for a little while, but there is a great opportunity there. You know, they're fun. They're full of images and videos. They're easy to create, and I think that our audiences are getting used to it more and more, and they're really quick. So in terms of social advertising, we're seeing a trend of people almost expecting those slideshows, you know, in the Snapchat, you know, world, in the memories world, in the content that just kind of flies real quick without us having to do much about it. I think that's the next expectation, is that the content kind of speaks for itself, that we don't have to click through it. It just clicks itself. So slideshows are something to think about when you're creating content for advertising in social media. It's something that it is returning, you know, really great, yielding great results for social media brands that are doing it. So I challenge you to look at the slideshows and how you can actually build that story. I know we've heard about the content now, you know, especially with live streaming. How do you create this snackable content? But what we're seeing in terms of trend is that these snackable contents need to create a bigger story. So it's not just content here, content there, and that's it. It's how this content here and that content there comes together to tell the entire story. So think about that and how that content builds a bigger story, which hopefully is who your brand is, what your brand is about.
Mary, we do have a question.
Okay, cool.
Could you further address incorporating negative feedback into content?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, the Bazaar white paper just came out on social media trends, and they talk a lot more about that, and I'll share that with you guys if you want post the summit. But it really is about what the expectation is on the transparency of our brand. If we're constantly bragging about how awesome we are, there's a feeling of, yeah, okay, we hear you, you're always awesome. If we become vulnerable, and we always talk about humanizing the brand, that's the key word there, and we say, hey, we accept the fact that we're not always awesome, that sometimes we make mistakes, and how do we turn that around, or how we turned it around, it becomes the story. Then the transparency comes through and we become a trustworthy brand. So how do you do that? Obviously, you curate content. You listen for content that is out there, what people are saying about your brand. Hopefully, you will reach out to the customer who's talking about your brand and try to find a solution for them or turn their story around into something positive, and that becomes the story. And you actually are able to post that on your website, you know, you tweet it or retweet it, and really, you know, if a customer said, hey, you know, this and this, we've had this, for example, at Microsoft where we had someone tweet us about waiting for their Windows 10 update. It was last year and taking a long time. So we had to explain to them, well, you know, it's coming out in waves. It's not going to come right now, but you can sign up to be an insider. And if you do, it was right before we actually launched it. It was in summertime. And so, you know, we said well, you can become an insider and get it a little bit earlier if you want. And the person actually responded and loved and became an insider. So we turned someone who wasn't even they weren't actually mentioning our brand directly. They were just talking and mentioned Windows 10, so we actually filtered and found this content. And so we were able to turn them into an insider. So there's a lot of ways that you can listen to what people are saying in social media and take that and, you know, retweet it and post it. And people really listen to that because it becomes, you know, it allows you to seem vulnerable to the customers and look real to them as well.
So we have one more question.
Okay.
Do you have an example of a slideshow that rocked you?
Oh, a slideshow that rocked me. You know, I have to say, I love the ones that are the quick food ones that show up on Facebook. I can't do that in a half hour. I don't know. It's not even a half hour. It's like 3 seconds what they do. And they do, you know, a picture, and then they give you the ingredients, and then they concoct the whole thing together in like less than, I know it's all speedy. And then, you know, there you have a really great meal. I love those. And they really capture my attention. What's really important here on those live shows is you have to think as a consumer, what really captures your attention? And it's not so much the content, but how they do it, right? So there's also the makeup one. I guess because I'm a girl, you know, this girl gets on and she's got no makeup on, and like, you know, 3 seconds later she just looks like a superstar. And I'm like, man, that's awesome. I love to do that. And they show the pictures of, you know, what palettes she used or whatever. So I think it's more of the educational videos that really make me stop and watch the whole thing and almost replay at times. And I think people are hungry for content always that is educational. So I would say in a general sense, when you do the slideshows, show something that your customers will stop and go, huh, I didn't know that, or huh, I didn't know how they did that. Now I know. And it's about telling your story of, you know, behind the scenes, of how you built something, of how you created a product, anything that kind of gives that behind the scenes, you know, look, and people are really curious about it.
We have one last question before we wrap it up. How
Okay.
can we define and harness brand storytelling into social?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. That's actually my main topic. How you do that is you really go back to your mission and vision. You ask yourself, why do you exist? Why does your brand exist? You know, someone created this organization for a reason. It met a need somewhere, somehow. And when you incorporate that story of why you exist, and additional to what you're giving back to the world with your product, with your service, how that plays into society, people tune into that. In storytelling, it's really important to not get so caught up with the product, but how the product really helps the customer. And an example I can give you, of course, Microsoft. If you check out our Instagram, if you check out our YouTube pages where there's a lot of storytelling there, you'll see that a lot of our stories are about how our products empower people somewhere else. And we're not necessarily talking about how awesome Surface is, which it really is, but it's more about, because we have an awesome Surface, we're giving this away to someone in, you know, Cambodia to be able to finish their studies. That's the kind of story that people want to see. It plays to the emotion, the human emotion, and it makes people go, huh, that's awesome. Microsoft is awesome. And you're like, yeah, we are. So it's really about how you portray your company and what your company is doing for the world. And just to wrap it up, you know, we have some challenges that we have to think about. I talked about opportunities. I just want to play that real quick. Reassess your influencers and who they are. Remember that now customers are tuning into the person next door to really hear about, you know, advertising. Are they really that good? You know, are their jeans really awesome? Keep an eye on those smaller platforms that are emerging and what the features are to see if it's what fits within your targeted audience, and leverage content-generated, consumer-generated content for your own good, for the advertising. Use it for advertising as well. And we see some challenges. There's consumer behavior always change. What that means is again, what works today may not work tomorrow. So understand the trends. I'm talking about it now. 6 months from now, it may not be true. So don't come back and be like, oh, Mary said, you know, you have to understand that these things kind of change because consumer behavior changes these trends. Generation Z and their Z ways to shop, we're still there to see what they're doing. They're still young. They're still, you know, beginning to be consumers right now in this space, spending mom and pop's money, but later on they're going to be, you know, the next generation that is going to drive our challenges and our opportunities as a brand. And understand that we no longer see social as a channel. We see social as a transformation, a digital transformation. That means that basically it's all about content. It's no longer Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. It's all of it is content through all the platforms that we choose, and how do we tell that story effectively and consistently through all the channels.
Yeah, wow. Sham wow is what I say. I always learn so much from you. Yeah, that's and now I got another 2 pages of notes. We're going to have a conference on just typing up all these notes. Holy smokes. Wow. And yeah, so yeah, I actually was tweeting out some of the things that you said, and thank you so much for sharing that. And you got into the experiential part, which blending with the advertising trends and spends, I think is, wow, that's where it's at. And, and like you said, it's continuously changing, which is why we have these, you know, strategy seminars and these conferences.
That's right.
Yeah, we have to.
You got to keep doing this. We got to keep going. You guys got to keep coming to these things and meet us in person because we're there.
That's right, yep, and we'll be talking about that at the end. So we'll tell you who's going to be where, when, and all that cool stuff so you can come out and meet. All right, so thank you so much, Mary.